Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to welcome you today on our new podcast called The Decider. This is the video podcast where we discuss sports, talk about physical culture, and we're doing the unpacking of sports professions, professions related to sports. And today, it's a big honor for me to discuss sports with Mr. Grant Sisk. Grant, hello.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is possible for us to talk today. Dr. Grant Sisk holds a PhD in American literature, and this is really amazing because we will have a very good chance to talk about sports and literature. It's a very interesting topic for me personally, hopefully for you all too. Grant is a published novelist and short story writer. He has spent his career in higher education, first in classroom and later in international education. We first met when he was on a Fulbright scholarship to Russia in 2017. His first novel, Thousand Miles Out of My Mind, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. In his spare time, Dr. Sisk enjoys riding his horses, camping out with his family, swimming, hiking, and doing everything that keeps him outdoors. Grant, welcome. Okay.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm delighted to be here, and I apologize for the camera angle. My USB camera decided to take the day off, and so I'm on my laptop. But
That's
hopefully the fan in the background is not too much of a distraction.
That's definitely not a problem. What is really amazing is that we have a chance to talk to you today. You are located in Texas, and we've had while preparing for this interview, we've had some difficulties even with the time zones. And I learned for myself that Texas is such a huge state. It even has 2 time zones. Amazing. So Grant, to you know what we are going to discuss today. Sports. In the USA, student sports and sports in general is a real phenomenon. And many countries try to go this way. Many countries try to make an industry out of student sports. But there's no one is even close to that. NCAA is an industry. Broadcasting, stars, sports celebrities, state champions are real, I don't know, rock and roll stars. Neither of the other countries are even close. And I think for us, for you as a philosophy doctor in American literature, for me as a linguist, I think it would be a pretty nice idea to try to search the source, the basis, the riverhead of this phenomena in literature. Why not? Let's talk about that. But first of all, we have to get acquainted, okay? Well, a little bit more. And so we have the first personal questions block. Let's try to do it in a blitz mode, okay?
Sure.
All right. What's your hometown?
Dallas, Texas.
Oh, it's not a town. It's actually a city.
Yeah, well, it is. I actually grew up in Garland, which is a suburb of Dallas. But if I say Garland, nobody knows what I'm talking about. So, but everybody's heard of Dallas.
No. My question was exactly your hometown, and this is
well,
really
I thought my exact hometown is Garland, Texas.
amazing. Your family, are your parents connected to sports?
Not particularly. My dad played football in high school. My mother, they're both still alive, by the way. He's 92, she's 91. Like a lot of women in the 50s, at least in America, she was a housewife and pretty much confined herself to that. She never was very athletically minded. And then my father, when he got out of high school, he went to college, and that was it for him.
Of course. Yeah. All right. What about your kids?
Yes, my kids. So I've got a son from my first marriage who's 25, and he played football in high school for Allen, which, as you may or may not know, Allen High School is a huge football school here in the North Texas region. My stepson, that's Logan. Logan played for them. My stepson Connor, he plays football and he runs track. He's pretty good football player. He's an exceptional sprinter. So he's broken some records, and we're very proud of him.
Amazing. What's his position in American football? A running back or
He plays safety.
safety?
Yes,
Yeah, I know those like I played actual American football for 1 year and safeties. Uh, uh, okay, the first evil is running back and the second is safety. No, okay,
correct.
I this is a very good position. He can run fast. Do you know his personal best in track and field?
I do not. I'm sorry. I should have looked that up. I wasn't expecting that question,
No,
but I
of
can
course
get back
not.
to you.
Grant, some of the questions will be unexpected, but
Oh, okay. Well,
this is the
then
interview.
I may flub some of them.
Okay. Um, what university have you graduated from, and what were you majoring in?
So I got my PhD at the University of North Texas, and as we discussed a little bit earlier, I got my earned my doctorate in modern American literature, and then of course I've got a master's in British literature, and then I've got a my baccalaureate. I had a bachelor's in English there from Abilene Christian University in Abilene, Texas, out in West Texas.
Amazing. The previous interview I've had with Mr. Alan Moore, the guy from the sports expert from Ireland, and we
Oh,
also discussed Ulysses by James Joyce. You know,
all right.
so
That's that's quite a novel there. I would I'd love to listen in on that because I remember reading Ulysses when I was working on my master's degree, and that was my first introduction to stream of consciousness in writing, and it really blew my hair back, so to speak. It took a while to get into it, but
it's
and then
it's this text is a code, and this is amazing. We will get back to it a little bit later.
okay.
What team do you support as a fan?
I like the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Cowboys are a great football franchise. I enjoy watching their games too. But if I'm going to go and spend money on a sporting event, it's going to be hockey.
Amazing. I didn't expect that actually. I expected Dallas Cowboys. But this is real nice. Ice hockey in Texas. This is something we should also talk about because Texas is a very I would say southern state, right? And
Oh yeah, yeah. There are no outdoor hockey rinks in Texas anywhere.
I think this would be an amazing idea when it's hot outside to visit a hockey game because it's always like cool there. No.
Uh-huh. Right, right.
Okay. What about basketball?
I don't care for basketball. I really never understood it. Um, when I was in the seventh grade, my dad asked, um, he really wanted me to go out for the basketball team at my high school or my junior high, as it were. And I didn't want to do it, but he promised to buy me a deer rifle if I did. So I tried out for the basketball team. I got my deer rifle, and that's the last time I ever played. I played one season.
Amazing. You are the first American who doesn't care about basketball, but this is, I expected that as a writer, you have to be special. Okay. Okay. Who's your favorite author, writer, and the book?
Well, that really is an impossible question for me, and I'll give you the same answer in a minute. If we talk about anything else, you know, arts related, but um, I've been reading a lot of Jim Harrison. He's an American poet. He just died a couple of years ago. Um, I just and it's funny because he's primarily known as a poet, But I was introduced to his work through the movie Legends of the Fall. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie that has Brad Pitt in it, but it's pretty famous. It's a good movie, and it's based on a novella that Jim Harrison wrote years and years ago. But right now, a lot of Jim Harrison. At other times, I go through phases where I might go into my Irish phase. You mentioned Joyce. I'm a huge fan of James Joyce, particularly like his short stories.
The
Was
Dubliners.
delighted that I was able to read and somewhat understand Ulysses. I can't make the same claim about Finnegan's Wake. I ran out of steam on that one, but I think James Joyce is an estimable writer, certainly. Who else do I like? I like a lot of regional American writers that probably they don't have the international fame, that would resonate much. But Tom McGuane's really good. You know, gosh, I mean, I've read so much now. You mentioned Poe. I mean, I've enjoyed reading Poe. I read a lot of the ancient Greeks, the Iliad, the Odyssey. So I'm all over the place, which pretty much characterizes my entire life, really.
Grant, as an expert in modern American literature, are you trying to get acquainted with the authors, to get closer to them, to discuss something like in person?
So not so much anymore. I've kind of moved past that phase of my career. It's interesting though because I mentioned the movie and the novella Legends of the Fall by Jim Harrison, but I became interested in him through another writer named Tom McGuane, who I also mentioned. They're friends, and I did interview Tom McGuane. Oh gosh, probably 20 years ago, and he mentioned that Legends of the Fall was actually a short story that he was working on. It was the title of a short story, and Jim Harrison had come to his house and saw it, and he said, "Oh, I like that. I like that title. I'm going to steal it." And so he took it away from him, and that's how that came to be. I also got to interview James Dickey years ago. He's an American poet, and probably at least in the U.S., he's most known for what was that movie? All of a sudden, I blanked out. He wrote a novel that was made into a movie that Burt Reynolds was in, and all of a sudden, I just completely blanked on it. But I have tried. In both instances, I found Mr. McGuane and Mr. Dickey to be, nice and personable writers. When I was in college, when I was in graduate school, we would have visiting writers that we would meet sometimes. But as a general practice, no, I don't try to reach out and get to know them very well.
Okay. What's your favorite music and band?
Once again, an impossible question to answer. It's funny. I like all types of music. To be candid, I listen. Being from Texas, I listen to a lot of country music, of course. So George Strait and Colter Wall and Pearl Haggard and all the greats.
It's weird, but in Russia, the most popular country band is not American.
Really?
It's Rednecks. Yes.
Well, that's the good thing about music, though. And I think that's an interesting thing about connecting, sports to the arts because they're all great connectors. And
Yeah,
um,
indeed.
the band I've been listening to lately is called I think I'm pronouncing it right as Tenorowin or something like that. And they're a group of Tuareg musicians from northern Mali who have pioneered another version, another form of the blues. Here in the U.S. we have the Delta blues, all down south and all that. But they are pioneering a new genre that they're calling desert blues, and it's amazing, really amazing.
Indeed.
So
Cool. Uh, um, do you have an athlete who inspires you most? Probably. I don't know.
You know, I gave that a lot of thought over the years, and I think I think in terms of sort of maybe a mythical athlete, Sisyphus, you know, the Greek who was doomed to roll the rock uphill, and then it rolls down, you know, every day when he gets it to the top. You know, that's his punishment. And I always kind of admired that because you know, he never quits. But in terms of an actual living, breathing athlete, I really like John Daly, you know, the golfer.
John Daly.
He's yeah,
Who's that?
yeah, yeah,
What
the golfer.
sports?
He's a very famous golfer, but he's
Golfer.
famous
Okay.
as
Golfer.
much. And I don't follow golf, but he's famous as much for just being very quirky and individual as also being an incredibly great golf player. So so yeah,
Okay.
probably
Another
not what you're
unexpected
expecting
thing.
again.
What's about no what about Dallas Stars? Can you name like a genuine champion among them?
You know, I cannot. I haven't been to a Stars game in probably 10 years. Um, I believe I told you before this that I'm really not a huge sports fan. I sort of admire it from the sidelines, but you
But
know, I'm
yeah, Grant, this is truly like important to have a vision or a view a little bit outside of sports. It is, really refreshing sometimes, and so I trust we are getting closer to the main part, and I suggest we will go to this main part through this bridge, a part of like a block of questions, which I called sports as a tool.
okay.
Uh, can you tell me what role sports play in international education programs? Is it easier for an athlete, a good athlete, to get a good scholarship? I don't know, like even full scholarship in international programs.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think in America the answer is almost always going to be yes. You know, a good athlete, a top achiever, is always going to have more avenues open to him or her than someone who doesn't play sports. Now, you know, you can't just have the sports and you know divorce from good academic standing. You know, that's important as well, but you know diversity in its purest form where one is not just siloed into one or two things is almost always beneficial. Another thing to consider for particularly for college athletics is that so many universities in the United States rely very heavily on the dollars that come in through their sporting programs. I was reading an article. It's been a few years ago, but it was written by a college administrator, and they had gotten together a group of administrators, and they were looking at the university budget, and they had a new computer program that would allow them to sort of fiddle with the budgets and you know allocate money, you know, without actually doing it, but it would show the downstream consequences. And she was saying that the first thing they did was they defunded the football program by you know several $1 million and dispersed that across the university to you know the liberal arts and to the fine arts and to you know engineering, you know, mathematics, what have you. And she said that that the computer program showed that by doing that one small change, they cost the university $25 million in revenue that year alone. And so, you know,
Okay.
always an athlete, a student athlete who's going to bring attention and fans or what have you to a university program is going to be given
How do you
some
think?
consideration.
Is it to deal with or like somehow connected with the marketing of the university? I mean, having a strong sports program.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, I know. I know students who will go to a university simply because of their football program, and they're not going there to play. They want to go to those games. And I know you've seen videos of a large, big, Big 12 or whatever football game, and there's what 60, 70, 80, 100,000 people in the stadium, and then there's even more in the parking lot out there partying and watching the game. And they're all wearing their favorite player's jersey. They've got the caps. They've got they've got the beer holders. They've all the just the ticket sales alone, and then all the associated merchandise that brings in that revenue. I mean, it's just amazing. So yeah.
Grant, do you know the financing of sports programs? Do they come from the endowment funds, or they come from, I don't know, like direct, like I mean, the income from the educational programs?
I do not know. I suspect I've never had any dealings with that side of the budgetary, house, so to speak, at a university. My suspicion is that the endowment does not come into it too much, but I really don't know. I really don't
Okay,
know.
this is interesting because we're doing some small research on that.
Okay.
Because, like, in Russia, you are not how to put it, you are not able to finance sports and athletics in the university through the money that come from the educational programs. There's a big,
Real.
like, barrier, and to develop sports better, you have to get extra money from, like, I don't know, somewhere else. And
Right.
there's a uh, uh, we think that it might be a pretty good source to finance it from the endowment funds. But anyway, let's get back to the path we were going on. As you said, you are not pretty much into sports, right? And
No.
I recollected a very good book. You definitely know it. When I was young, it was one of my favorites. I don't know why. The Catcher in the Rye by Jerome Salinger.
Yeah.
And you do remember Holden Caulfield, the main character?
Oh,
He
certainly.
was also not too much into sports,
Right. Right.
And there's, I would say, there's one of the first scenes in the book, uh, that I quote very often when I talk about the spectators, the number of spectators on the college football stands. I mean, on the competitions,
Uh-huh.
and because it's absolutely impossible to understand how can a game between two colleges be attended by, I don't know, 30,000 spectators. This is like this is amazing. In my country, we cannot. It's not very often we have this attendance at the professional athletic competitions. I mean, even at the football game. And
Hmm.
getting back to the Catcher in the Rye, I don't know. I don't remember if it's the page number 4 or page number 5, but it's in the very beginning. Holden Caulfield, he stands. He's getting ready to. He's dismissed from the
Yeah. From Pensy
from
Preparatory
Pensy,
School.
yeah,
Yep.
and he wants to go to see his teacher of
Uh-huh.
history, and he
Yep.
is asked by a school administrator. He was asked, "Why are you standing here? The entire school, they are at the stands because this is a very important home game against
Uh-huh.
the other, I don't know, other school from Pennsylvania." Um,
Right.
and and I always say, look, if only the directors of schools, if they only execute the strategy that when your team is playing, everyone should attend. I think that with the years, all the people will get this, habit to support, to be a supporter, because this is a habit. You have to get into this before you become a, like, a, I don't know, a sports fan. So what do you think about that? You definitely remember this book, and probably you have some thoughts on that.
Well, it is curious. Holden does feel a need to go to the games, because he's got some loyalty to the school, even though he's been, as you said, dismissed from it, and he's kind of going around and I think giving his kind of farewells as much as anything. He's leaving an environment where he's perhaps been unhappy, but he's been comfortable in. And we all know the human nature to stay in a bad situation, even if we don't like it because it's comfortable, right? So to your other question, about getting buy-in from students and other people to come to sporting events, um, for some reason, and I don't know why that is, but for some reason that's always been a kind of a tough nut to crack for some sports. Football is not a problem because it's very popular here, right? Um, but I think there's just a natural loyalty that people develop for an institution, and if you can figure out a way to get that buy-in and get that loyalty and give them something that they can't get elsewhere, then you start to build that following. Um, but back to Holden, I think he's deeply ambivalent. I think that's one of the things that certainly is a thread through that entire novel. And you mentioned that it's one that you came to young. The interesting thing about that is Salinger actually, I don't think he intended for the 14 to 17-year-old age bracket to be his main audience for that novel, but it really resonates with that age group because we all remember, even, I'm 60 years old. I still remember being 14 and being, terribly scared of not being accepted and not knowing what to do and feeling terribly awkward in social situations. And somehow Salinger taps into that, and in the character of Holden Caulfield, he kind of shows that once again that age bracket that, look, what you're going through is normal and it'll pass, and you just have to try to do the best you can, but you're not the only one feeling this. And of course Holden, that night he's got a lot happens to him, right? I mean, his professor turns up being maybe a little unhealthily interested in him. And he's got a cold that he's battling, and he's depressed, and it's a dreary time of year. And he just, like all of us at that age, he's just sort of emotionally fragile. And maybe his maybe he's regretting not being more involved in the sporting side of Pensy Prep, because that's kind of their thing, right? They're an institution that's famed for their scholastic work, but also they have high performing athletic teams as well. So that's a rambling response, but I hope it gets us somewhere to where you were looking for.
Why I started to discuss The Catcher in the Rye,
Uh-huh.
because this is not the only scene about sports. Holden, as you probably remember, he was the captain of the fencing team of his school.
Right.
And what is more important, there was a glove of his elder brother. You do remember his elder brother became a screenwriter in Hollywood.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
I do remember right now. His big brother, he became a screenwriter in Hollywood, and Holden
Mhm.
Caulfield is very upset about that because he said before he became a screenwriter, he was a very good author, a writer.
Yeah, but
you
now he's
know,
a phony.
yeah, yeah, right. but Holden also had a younger brother
Hmm.
who played baseball, and
Right.
the younger brother has died. And
Right.
if I'm not mistaken, he put some verses on the baseball glove or something like
Uh-huh.
this. And so Holden cherished this baseball glove, and he kept it. And
Uh-huh.
so that's why I'm asking. Uh, Jerome Salinger is a genius because he could write a novel that was that resonates the entire, I don't know, every single population of like younger people. They do feel themselves like Holden Caulfield,
Oh
and
yeah.
why like inserting the baseball glove, the fencing team, the American football game, was that really, like, I don't know, important? Was that the part of American culture to place into the Catcher in the Rye, and many of sports representations in this novel.
Hmm.
I have thank you, Grant. Thank you for your vision. We are going further, trying to to unpack this representation of sports and literature. And
Hmm.
I have another question. It will be it will start with the listing, Ken Casey, Jack Kerouac, Samuel
Hmm.
Beckett, Tom Wolfe, David Foster Wallace, Jim
Hmm.
Carroll, John Fowles, Stephen Crane could be real good athletes but became writers. Do you think that in their books you can see they were real good athletes? Is there some features that maybe make them special authors as a former athletes?
Yeah, I think so. And don't forget Ernest Hemingway also. He was known as kind of a quote unquote man's man, and was very athletic and as well. Yeah, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and it strikes me that in all and Jim Carroll's a really interesting pick you made there. He did. I don't know if you got to the Basketball Diaries by way of Catcher in the Rye, or that's not a common. Not many people are aware of Jim Carroll. Let me just put it that way. He's
But he is
um,
listed. He's listed among writers who were athletes
Oh
in on
yeah,
many
well, and he
websites.
was he was a great basketball player. Yeah, great basketball player. And I think in all the instances you list, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. That a writer will always mine, they'll always delve into what they know, and if as you mentioned earlier, you're around people who talk about sports all the time, and so I imagine that in a lot of conversations the references are to sports or to sporting figures or to particular games or what have you. And so, with a writer who was a student athlete or maybe even a professional athlete, there was a guy named Peter Gint who wrote a novel called North Dallas 40. It's loosely based on the Dallas Cowboys, but so he was actually a professional ball player who wrote a best-selling novel, and in each of the instances they use sports because they know it, and they recognize the universality of sporting. I'm trying to think how to put it, the universality of the competitive spirit. And so they use, because they know sports and they were athletes, and obviously to attain success in anything like that you have to love it and devote yourself to it. They use sports to underpin the real message of their work, the real message of their novel. So Jim Carroll, for instance, one of the main themes in the Basketball Diaries is he's almost like a Holden Caulfield character himself, and he's in New York as well. And he's on a much darker path than Holden is, and it's the same thing. He's connected to his school through basketball. He's a great basketball player, but in his personal life, that's falling apart, and he's spiraling into drug abuse and prostitution and other very very damaging things. Um, but he uses sports as a metaphor for, it can be for redemption, it can be for trying and never giving up, it can be for almost anything. And so sports, it'd be very boring, for instance, to read a novel by Nabokov about tennis and just tennis, right? But when you read Lolita, tennis figures in that novel, and it figures in it literally, but also metaphorically as well. And some of the critics of Nabokov have said that the tennis match uh, is a type of sexual conquest or what have you, and he didn't like that interpretation at all. But that's the problem of being a writer, is that you don't always know what you're putting into your work. And once you release, what you've written into the wild, people will make what they will of it. And if people start to see a
Yeah, personal
metaphor,
stuff.
they start to see something there, you can't really argue with them. And so, he may not like that people, that critics drew that conclusion, but there was something in that novel and in the tennis scenes in particular that led them to that conclusion. And so, I do think also that sports can have a very expansive effect on literature, because it isn't self so much of modern writing, in my opinion, is sort of self-referential. It's always referring back to itself, and that's the problem with people who have devoted themselves to just one small silo of experience. And the uh, more broadly distributed a writer's experiences and life experiences are, the richer and fuller their writing is going to be, in my opinion. Because and I think they can also attract a wider audience. Um, I think maybe a good example of that, or at least an example of that, is when you read literary theory or literary criticism. It's so specific to one small thing that it's not going to have a wide appreciation. It's not going to break out into the mainstream, nor should it. I mean, it's very specific in its intent, but it's sort of the antithesis of creative work also.
You know what? I come across it very often that uh, sports movies, for example, they
Uh-huh.
are always very motivational.
Yeah.
Even some people, they watch sports movies, although they are not athletes at all, just to get some additional motivation to
Sure.
to compete, to strive, to go forward, etc. Can sports implemented into a book, a text, can it be a tool to implement motivation or something like this? Or I will be asking stupid questions
It's not a
because
stupid question at all.
you're a professor, and professors, they very often they hear pretty stupid
Well,
questions.
like I tell, not that I'm comparing you to one of my students, but one thing I do tell my students when they say that is that, the only stupid question is one that's intentionally stupid. I mean, there are some stupid questions, but they're always intentionally stupid. But back to your question, absolutely. I mean, all sports have, at the bedrock of all sports is competition and trying to win. And some sports are more physically demanding than others. Some are more mentally challenging than others. A football player goes to a different type of rigor than a master chess player, right? But it's still a lot of it, maybe the majority of it happens in the mind. And that's where the motivation becomes important. because you pick a sport and you take two equally equipped players, and you have one who has the mindset of, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to keep on keeping on, and match them against the one who's like, well, I'm going to do my best, but if it gets too hard, I don't have to keep doing it. You know which one's going to prevail every time, because at the end of the day, it's like with you in boxing, right? I mean, I've never been a boxer, but I've been in a few fist fights, and getting hit in the face isn't fun. But you have to be willing to get hit in the face. And if you're not, you might as well go ahead and set your drink down and leave the bar.
In fact, Grant, as a sports expert, I can tell you that there's a term sportization, and in fact, almost every single thing a human can do can be sporticized. If I do it wrong, so you mean if you can compete in anything with the equal rules, I mean with the rules set to make the opportunities equal among all the contestants. This means
Uh-huh.
that you can make it a sport. In fact, a year ago, it was announced that in Sweden, the guys, they have decided to make the first European championship in sex. Can you imagine this?
In what?
In sex. Yeah.
Sadly, I can't imagine that. That seems to be the way our world is trending. Yes.
I mean, when we heard about that, we were so happy because you know what? I'm a sports expert. Of course, this could make me a sex expert.
Uh-huh.
If I involve in this stuff, and we have imagined how many events you can do within this championship. I mean, doubles, team competitions, whatever.
Oh yeah. I mean, it could be a team sport. It could be solo. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
A
Um,
freestyle,
Freestyle. Yeah.
butterfly.
Well, I have to say that the discussion has taken a turn I did not anticipate.
Yeah, continue what I said. There are so many things people do, and that they have become a sports, actually. For example, computer sports. People
Sure.
played computer video games, and right now it is sports. They are
Sure.
professionals. They're making millions of dollars by playing Dota 2 or Counter-Strike, and
Right.
people are competing in yoga. Can you imagine
Yeah.
this? And so, why I was asking, I think that the question is much wider than even you thought when I asked you about the discussion of like sports and literature, etc. Because you can imagine if yoga is sports, then Jesus Christ was an athlete. I mean,
Well, I mean, not to be flippant about the crucifixion, but when you look at the torture that he was subjected to before the actual crucifixion, I mean, that would have killed many people right there. In a lot of and I saw a lot of this when I was in Russia, and you see a lot of it in religious iconography. But Jesus is usually depicted as this sort of mealy kind of thin-armed, weakling type, but he had to have been an incredibly strong man. And to undergo a torture so severe that his own mother didn't recognize him, and then and then carry the cross all the way up the hill to Golgotha. I mean, I'd hate to see a sport like that, but yeah, that shows the mind of a champion right there as well.
yeah.
So, uh,
Um, You know what? Shifting to another question I wanted to discuss with you. I will start with a very brief question. Do you know Cameron Crowe as a writer?
I'm familiar with some of his work. Yes.
He is said to be one of the best writers among the screenwriters. You
Yeah.
probably, I'm sure you saw many of his like film movies.
Certainly.
done by him. But there's one very special movie for many people who are involved into sports, who are doing sports business. The movie is called Jerry Maguire.
I saw that movie.
Yeah, the Tom Cruise starred in this movie, and Renee Zellweger.
Correct.
So the movie is done by Cameron Crowe, because Cameron Crowe has written the screenplay, and he was the director of the movie. And you know what? There's the entire the entire story is about sports, right? It's based on sports. It is about the sports agent, who was actually in the beginning, he was just a lawyer. He started as a lawyer, but he dreamt to have a sports profession, to be in sports. And it turned out that being a lawyer, he could be a very good sports agent.
Right.
This made him a sports agent. And you know, in this movie there were so many very important questions for sports professionals even nowadays. Like if you can recollect it, no, I mean, Jerry Maguire, he at some period of his professional career, he got distracted about the way sports management was like developing, and he wrote a mission statement, and he distributed it between the company staff, and he was dismissed. He was fired from the company because he said less customers, more attention, meaning that we have to get back and love sports again, not treat it as an industry only, do not treat it as only as a source of money, but also like get back and try to live the sports, love sports, care about athletes, not only make money on them. But do you, by the way, as an American living in America, as a person who is not very much involved into sports, do you remember this movie?
I do.
Okay, very good, because we actually we just love this because it is so, you know, the Cameron Crowe, he has hit the nail on the head. He has shown the entire, I would say, the real life of a sports manager there. And by the way, there's an amazing chance to go through the entire mission statement, because Cameron Crowe, as a writer, he has the website, and he has placed the full text of mission statement on his website.
Really?
The website is called the Uncool, the official site for everything Cameron Crowe, as he puts it.
I'll have to look at that.
So I just wanted to discuss it with you a little bit, because you know, if you read the full text of the mission statement, you will see a pretty, I would say, a pretty interesting text that could be a small novel even, you know, because this is like in Flowers for Algernon. You do remember this this fantastic fiction novel, don't
I
you?
remember the title. I don't know that I've ever read it, though, to be candid.
It's amazing. I
Sorry.
mean, in Russian, it is called "Поток сознания," the stream of consciousness. You probably have this term in linguistics, or I mean in
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier about Ulysses. You know, that's one of the first stream of consciousness novels.
Yeah.
Joyce's Ulysses.
Yes, right. Ulysses by Joyce. Right. This is the best example. All right. So let's probably get back to it a little bit later because I will figure out what I was about to ask you. Okay, and let's shift to another question.
All right.
As we have discussed the American uh, writers who were good athletes, and I also would like to talk with you about the Russian writers and poets who were amazing athletes, actually.
Mhm.
Vladimir Nabokov, you definitely know this writer.
Yes.
He was a pretty decent soccer player, and
Hmm.
yeah, and he stick to it during his entire life. He played soccer when he was, uh, I would say, not very not very young.
Right.
although although soccer is a sport where you can get an injury every single minute. It's a very um, um, it's a sport you have to do very carefully when you are not young.
Hmm.
Anna Akhmatova, a very famous Russian poet, um, she did gymnastics pretty
Hmm.
well. Alexander Pushkin, the main writer of Russia,
Right.
and the poet,
Of
boxing
course.
and fencing. Can you imagine this? They say he shot pretty decently also. Leo Tolstoy, cycling and lawn tennis. I personally cannot imagine Leo Tolstoy cycling.
Yeah, it's hard to see Tolstoy playing lawn tennis, but
Yeah. But you know what?
it seems too bourgeois somehow.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was Duke. And as a noble guy, he did like noble sports, of
Hmm.
course. But I would, yes, we would try to find the photo, or I not photo, a picture probably of him playing lawn tennis.
There you go.
Alexander Kuprin, weightlifting and swimming. He was really a big guy,
Hmm.
Kuprin. By the way, have you ever heard about Alexander Kuprin?
Once again, I think I've heard the name, but I don't know that I have. I mentioned Jim Harrison earlier,
Mhm.
and uh, Akhmatova was one of his heroes. And Jim Harrison was very, very much into Russian literature. In
Mhm.
fact, he has a whole cycle of poems titled Letters to Yeznin, um, which are addressed to Sergei Yeznin, who is a Russian poet. Perhaps you're familiar with him. Um, and he wrote this. He sadly he committed suicide when he was quite young. But Jim Harrison was contemplating suicide as well, and he got himself out of that mindset by writing daily letters to Yeznin. And so this whole cycle of poems is quite interesting. But yes, I'm not a Russian literature scholar, but I've dabbled.
You have pointed a very interesting question because I thought to myself as a former athlete that athletes are very very far from uh, being able to commit a suicide because the entire life strategy is pretty different of losing.
Hmm.
But if you consider a suicide as a as an ultimate confirmation of your loss. You how to put it, you like agree that you have
Hmm.
lost. And an athlete, he never agrees that he's losing.
Well, it's an interesting point. And at the same time, when I look at a lot of American athletes who, when they're not in the spotlight anymore, and when people aren't running up to get their autographs, and they're not doing, they're not living the life that they had, frequently do spiral into self-destructive tendencies that could be described as suicidal. I mean, drugs, alcohol, you name it. Some of them actually do commit suicide, and so maybe the distinction is okay. Maybe that's what separates a great athlete from a champion. Maybe the champion's the one who does not allow that, and who acknowledges that um, uh, you know I believe it was Tennyson who wrote once again back to Ulysses, but the poem Ulysses, where he's saying, we're not, the same strength we were, but let's go ahead and to seek to strive and not seek to strive and not submit or something like that. I should have reread it, I suppose, but I didn't know we were going to talk about that. But perhaps that's the line of demarcation between a great athlete who has enjoyed material success and a true champion who understands that material success is not the end goal of athleticism or sports or whatever. It just happens to be a good, a nice to have. It's a nice perk, right? But when it's over, it's over, and then they go on and they do something else. And there's example after example of people who have done that. I think the Rocky series of movies, with Sylvester Stallone, is not a bad way to look at that, because you see him go from the underdog to the champion to defeated to becoming a champion, and that's kind of where he stuck for a while. But then as a writer, Sylvester Stallone realizes that you can't have a 65-year-old Rocky beating up people, so he has to figure out a way to continue succeeding, and he ultimately does that by mentoring a younger new generation, right? And so I would consider that a champion, as opposed to somebody who can't do
Grant,
it anymore. So,
this is a brilliant point. This is so correct. It's so right. In sports, you cannot say every given athlete they are the same. Of course, there are champions who are champions because they are not they are not losers. I mean, they
right,
are not putting
they're
their
not
hands
quitters.
down, as we say in Russia. And of course, if you're an athlete, you can also be a person who is like, he's in depression and distracted, etc., etc. So being a champion is not like playing ball. Being a champion means overcoming
Mm-hmm.
some real big issues and uh, winning either.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
cool. This is starting to be we are getting closer to understanding. Yeah, I think I just love the discussion.
Me
Look,
too.
I will continue the listing. After Sergei Kuprin, a guy goes Sergei Yesenin, swimming. Sergei Yesenin is very famous poet, a Russian poet, and he committed a suicide. He is said to commit a suicide. There are some, some versions of his death, but
I
the
believe he
main
hung
one,
himself.
huh?
I believe he hung himself.
Yeah, yeah, but there are some versions, because it was the revolutionary years in Russia, and
Uh-huh.
the poets at that time, they were pretty much involved into politics. They
Right,
were opinion leaders, and some people say that he has not committed a suicide, but he was killed.
right.
But anyway, this is an interesting thing to. Uh,
So I mentioned the writer Jim Harrison earlier. He's got a whole cycle of poems about, how do you pronounce his name? I think I mispronounced it earlier. Yesenin? Yes,
Yesenin.
Yesenin. Okay. He's got a whole cycle of poems that are in the form of letters written to him when Harrison was contemplating suicide himself. So, it's interesting how it cross pollinates.
Yeah, there are some poets and songwriters who try to to see the links between those poets who decided to leave this world earlier, like they some of them, they say the more talent you have, the closer to committing a suicide you are. I don't know why, but they say if you are very talented, you are like, going on the edge, something like
Well,
this.
I think a lot of artists, maybe all artists, um, engage with the world in a more they have less between them and the reality of the world, right? And it's sometimes very very hard for an artist who is sensitive and concerned about the human condition, so to speak, to witness all the bad things that happen in this world and not be deeply affected by it. And sometimes that leads to despair and suicide.
Grant, I came across a very interesting question. We are living in a new world where every single person can be a blogger, an opinion leader, a trendsetter, whatever. And
Right.
sports, it provides a very good opportunity for a person to become a journalist, a blogger, a person who shares his ideas monthly, weekly, daily, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as a professional in literature, as a doctor, philosophy doctor in modern American literature, do you can you tell where's the line between a person who writes texts? Very often those texts, they can be compiled in a book, you know, from your blog you can put together all those texts and you can publish a book, but that actually that doesn't make you a writer. It
No.
makes you a blogger who has published another book, you know, and you
Mm-hmm.
definitely know about that. Uh, can you tell how can you differentiate between those guys who make texts, who are opinion leaders? Because the writers, I mean, writers in the past, they were genuine opinion leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trendsetters also.
Yeah.
How can you differentiate? Where's this, you know, the red line between a text maker and the writer?
So I think I think for me at any rate, you're right. It's a new world. People are less educated than ever, and with more opinions than ever. I think um, with the rise, with the ability to self-publish and to just throw yourself out there and go, "Oh, I'm a writer." I think at the end of the day, it goes back to what we were talking about with Salinger. When you look at Catcher in the Rye and you consider that it's been, gosh, I saw one time. I had an old paperback copy of it, and I think it said at that point it had sold like 100 million copies worldwide. If you find success beyond just your friends and a few people who think exactly like you, if you find success, the broader the appeal is on a human level. And I make that distinction between the human level being, in our heart and in the way we feel, what have you, as opposed to an informational level where I'm going to publish this manual to teach you how to do something fantastic with Windows 10 or what have you, straight information, which would be read, but it won't be internalized, and it's read for specific information for a specific task, and then it's dispensed with, as opposed to a novel like, once again, Catcher in the Rye, or pick another great novel, pick a great poem that stays with you all your life, and as you age, that novel or that poem or whatever ages with you. You see more in it every time you come back to it. You see something new because you're new when you come back to it. That would be the distinction I would make. Um, having having published a novel that was not self-published. It was picked up by it was a small press, but
By the
an
editor.
editorial board did read it. They did, and I'll be candid with you. I mean, my novel is not going to be one of the 100 greatest novels in the world ever. It never, it's not going to be. But there was enough there for an editorial board to say, you know what, I think we can publish this as part of our literary, uh, you pursuits.
Is
So
there
that's where
anything is there anything about sports in your novel, 1,000 Miles Out of My Mind?
I don't think there is.
I really don't. I could be wrong. I mean, I only wrote it. I don't really know what all's in it. Um, no, I don't specifically recall any references to sports.
Is it
And
about
it's
traveling, roaming the America?
it's set on the road. Yeah, it's a novel that's set on the road. It's got a really kind of a Holden Caulfield character is the protagonist. Same type of coming of age idea. Not anywhere near as good as Salinger. Um, but no, I don't recall sports in it at all. So sorry.
No, no, no. That's okay. This is very interesting because you know what? Sports as a tool, you can use it, or either you can choose not to use it. This is pretty simple. I right now I'm anxious to read this novel.
Well, I hope you
Uh,
like it.
I'll check it on Amazon and I'll order it, and hopefully it will travel to Russia, and
Well,
so I can read it.
I actually sent it to another guy that I met in Russia on the Fulbright, and it took about a month to get to him. But
Oh my God.
I'll tell you
Uh,
what, though, if it do me this favor after we ring off today, just send me your mailing address, and I'll send you a copy. I don't want you to buy it.
Oh, thank you.
I'll
No, but I
Yeah.
will buy it and I'll try to get the autograph from you.
But
This is my.
here's the thing, Dennis. If you let me mail it to you, it'll be free and it'll be autographed. So
Oh my
problem
God.
solved. Okay.
This is an
So
amazing outcome of our interview.
so let me do that. I would like to do that. Thank you.
Amazing. This will be really amazing. Thank you so much, Grant. We are
It may
getting
take a month to get there, though.
amazing. This is a very good present for me. Grant, we are getting to the end of our interview. In
Okay.
fact, as I said already, I kept saying this. I really loved the discussion. Hopefully, you will be available for another, I don't know, small talks on
Sure.
literature and
Maybe.
sports.
Yeah. I mean, I would love. I've enjoyed this immensely myself. I mean, perhaps we could do something similar again and do a mashup. Just whatever works for you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Grant. Thank you. We are almost like through. I wish you the best luck. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas. I think that there were some really fresh and interesting ideas in our discussion. And have a nice day.
You too. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and we'll stay in touch. And
Stay in touch.
send your address. Send me your
Yeah,
address.
definitely so. I
Thank
will.
you, Dennis.
Thank you. Bye bye. Have a
Bye
nice
bye.
day.